How many battles have you lost? Not because you weren't capable, but because you overreacted to a single comment, a single failure, a moment of doubt. You hand over your power again and again every time you respond emotionally to something beneath your mission. You want to be respected, but you flinch. You want to dominate, but you hesitate. You want to lead, yet you surrender to every small trigger as if it holds authority over your soul. But now, imagine this, you walk into every room with unshakable calm. People insult you and you smile. Pressure mounts and you breathe. The world throws chaos and you move through it like a fortress in a storm. Imagine mastering your mind to the point where nothing disturbs your core. This isn't motivation, it's a weapon. In this training, I'll install the code of mental dominance inside you so that doubt no longer speaks, fear no longer rules, and emotional chaos dies in silence. This is the art of unbothered power, and once it's forged, it's irreversible. Subscribe now, not for content, but to join a war against your weaker self. This is your contract of transformation. Sign it. You wake up already irritated, not because something went wrong, but because you're anticipating the world coming for you, a glance, a message, a delay, and your emotions spiral. This isn't coincidence, this is programming. You've been conditioned to react, to respond, to flinch. But here's the truth. This is not weakness of character. This is a faulty code installed in you over years, a system that makes your emotional state dependent on external noise. You are not the storm. You are the leaf thrown around by every wind. You seize the authority to define your reality. You now carry a new principle. Emotion is a tool, not your master. The more you reinforce this code, the more your presence becomes immovable. You no longer beg the world to be quiet. You become the silence that outlasts the noise. From this moment forward, you are not a man who reacts. You are the one who commands. Repeat. After me, I do not flinch. I do not bend. I am the stillness in the chaos. Let every challenge become your opportunity to prove that statement true. Every time you react emotionally, you surrender tactical ground. Isn't just weakness, it's a security breach. Emotional detachment isn't apathy. It's awareness under pressure. It means seeing the event, feeling the emotion, and choosing strategy over impulse. You don't suppress, you process. And position. The strong don't feel less. They use their emotions as signals, not commands. If anger arises, it becomes data. If fear appears, it's scanned, not obeyed. Society tells you that not reacting means you're cold. That's false. It means you're in control. The loudest are usually the most insecure. The man who can stand still while others explode is not passive. He's calculating. His silence is not weakness. It's the sound of discipline aligning with intention. Control equals leverage. Detach not to escape, but to execute. If you're too emotionally involved, you can't see clearly. If you can't see clearly, you can't lead, not yourself, not others. Leaders don't just act, they withhold action until it's necessary. And when they do move, it's precise, decisive, final. That's the energy you must train. Build your identity around restraint. When others provoke, you don't defend, you don't explain, you observe, assess, reposition. Most will mistake this for indifference. Let them. Confusion is a weapon. The more they can't read you, the more control you gain. Power hides in what you refuse to react to. There's a reason empires fell due to overreaction. Leaders lost their edge because they responded emotionally instead of strategically. Do not follow them. Your mission is to master the space between stimulus and response. That's where your next level lives. That's where men are forged. Install this rule. In your mind, I don't react. I respond if it serves the mission. Let that be your code in conflict, in failure, in doubt. You don't owe a reaction to anyone. Your energy is your weapon. Spend it with intent or not at all. You're not a product of what happens to you. You're the architect of how you interpret it. And that interpretation, chosen consciously, creates your identity. One insult. Irrelevant. One failure. Fuel. One moment of pressure. Training. You no longer break, you recalibrate. That's command. Repeat this. I do not respond to weakness. I use it as training. That's your standard. You carry it into conversations, into failure, into battle. Let others drown in noise. You operate in silence and dominate from within. Failure is neutral. It's not humiliation. It's not defeat. It's a report feedback from the battlefield, but you were trained to interpret it emotionally. You don't see failed attempts as iterations. You see them as proof that you're not enough. That distortion is costing you years. Every time you internalize failure, you solidify a false identity, the man who almost you weren't rejected. You just learned how not to approach that mission. Thomas Edison wasn't wrong 1,000 times, he gathered 1,000 pieces of intelligence. That's why he succeeded. He didn't feel failed. He felt informed. When you take failure personally, you weaponize it against yourself. You turn data into doubt, lessons into labels. Stop, that's mental sabotage. High-level operators extract the information and discard the sting. They don't carry emotional residue into the next battle. They reset and relaunch fast, reprogram. Your perception, failure is not personal, it's mechanical. You executed a plan. The plan didn't work. That's it. Adjust variables. Test again. The problem isn't the loss, it's the lag. You sit in self-pity instead of re-engaging with intelligence. That delay is what really destroys momentum. Detach your worth from your wins. Your identity is not tied to perfection. It's tied to your persistence. If you only feel strong when you're winning, you're weak. Real power is built in losing without losing yourself. You walk through the loss and keep moving. That's fortitude. Remember this, a failed attempt is not a failed identity. The moment you separate the two, you free yourself from the shame loop. Shame breeds hesitation. Hesitation becomes habit, and habit becomes your reality. You either learn fast and move forward or suffer slow and stay stuck. Stop chasing flawless performance, chase accurate feedback. Your mind must become a lab, not a courtroom. Test, measure, adapt. You're not here to prove yourself. You're here to master yourself, and mastery requires correction, over and over, without ego, without story. Repeat this internally until it embeds. Every failure is fuel. Every loss is data. Every step is progress. This is your new mental operating system. Install it, execute it, live by it. Now go fail faster, learn sharper, and rise stronger. That's how warriors are built. What you repeatedly imagine becomes your operating blueprint. The mind cannot distinguish vividly imagined reality from actual experience. This is why the undisciplined visualize failure, embarrassment, and collapse, and then recreate those scenarios through their behavior. Visualization isn't fantasy, it's installation. You've been visualizing unconsciously your entire life. Every hesitation, every fear scenario, every excuse, those were rehearsed before they became action. And if you can rehearse defeat, you can install dominance. The process is the same. The outcome depends on the images you allow to loop in your system. Start visualizing not success, but execution. See yourself calm under attack, controlled under pressure, cold under fire, not to impress others, but to prove to yourself that chaos does not alter your clarity. The mind must see this version repeatedly until it becomes default. This isn't passive meditation, it's mental combat training. When you close your eyes, you're not escaping reality, you're building a new one. Picture your composure, your response, your stillness. Run the simulation again and again until the brain wires it in as truth. That's the battlefield. Elite athletes use this. Special forces train this. Vision precedes control. Control precedes dominance, and dominance starts before the first move is made, in silence, in solitude, in rehearsed mental clarity. If you skip the visualization, you enter every challenge unarmed. The images in your mind are instructions to your nervous system. Feed it fear and it hesitates. Feed it power and it acts. This is not a motivational hack, it's physiology. Every vivid scene you run tells your body what's normal. Change the standard, install the scene of power, create your avatar, the version of you that doesn't flinch, that speaks with certainty, that walks into resistance without apology. Now train that avatar in your mind until it becomes your identity. The more you install, the less effort it takes to execute. That's mental leverage. Affirm this mentally now. I see myself calm. I see myself strong. I see myself untouchable. This becomes your new loop every morning, before every conflict. Before you speak, before you move, train until seeing power feels more natural than seeing collapse, because whatever you rehearse the most is what you become. Most men don't fail from lack of ambition, they drown in distraction. Every input you allow becomes an influence. The more attention you give to petty conflicts, shallow opinions, or digital noise, the less bandwidth remains for your mission. Focus is not about doing more, it's about deleting more. Indifference is the byproduct of ruthless clarity. When you know what matters, everything else becomes silent. You stop reacting not because you've become cold, but because you've become selective. Emotional detachment isn't apathy, it's filtration. You don't fight every battle. You only engage in wars worth winning. Each reaction has a cost: time, energy, emotional residue. When you spend it on trivia, you bankrupt your mission. A man with no filter is a man without direction. Reclaim your focus and you reclaim your identity. Because where your focus goes, your life follows. Stop letting minor irritations hijack your operating system. That traffic jam, that passive-aggressive comment, that algorithm-fed argument, none of it affects your destiny unless you give it permission. Your focus is your fortress. Guard it with everything you've got. What you focus on, you feed. If you give energy to weakness, you grow it. If you pour into power, you multiply it. That's not mindset, that's mechanics. Your attention is the most valuable currency you own. Invest it like a strategist. Withdraw it from anything that doesn't reinforce your code. High performers aren't calm by accident, they've eliminated distractions with surgical discipline. No unnecessary conversation, no pointless debates, no emotional labor wasted on proving, pleasing, or persuading. They channel everything toward the mission, and that's why they're dangerous. Redefine strength as selective energy. You don't owe anyone access to your attention. You don't need to explain your silence. You're not ignoring people, you're honoring purpose. When you make peace with being misunderstood, you become unstoppable. Say this internally with force. I don't focus on noise. I invest in execution. I protect my mission. Let that run in your system every time distraction knocks. Your job isn't to fight everything, it's to finish something, and that requires focus so sharp, it cuts through every excuse. The moment you need approval, you become programmable. Every look, comment, or like begins to rewrite your behavior. You shift your words to fit, you adjust your posture to please. Slowly, you disappear, replaced by a version of you built to survive external judgment. That is not identity, that is submission. Approval seeking is fear in disguise. Not fear of failure, fear of rejection, of not being seen. But here's the truth: real leaders don't need applause. They move with conviction even when surrounded by silence. They are not shaped by the crowd. They shape the ground they walk on. The desire to be understood by everyone is the fastest way to betray your mission. Some people are not meant to agree with you. Some won't get it. Let them. Their confusion is irrelevant. Your job is not to be liked, it's to become undeniable. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be precise. You lose momentum every time you pause to check who's watching. You dilute your execution when you explain yourself to people who haven't earned the right to question you. The lion does not turn when the sheep makes noise. That's not arrogance. That's efficiency. There is a difference between being respected and being accepted. One is earned through strength, the other is begged for through compromise. You cannot do both. Every time you edit your truth to keep the peace, you fracture your foundation. Over time, that fracture becomes collapse. Escape the approval trap. You must validate yourself with evidence. Execute, build. Keep your word to yourself. That's where confidence is forged, not in compliments, but in completed actions. When you trust yourself, external voices lose their power. They become background noise. You are not cold for ignoring validation. You are clear, you're not antisocial, you're selective. Let them call it arrogance. Let them misinterpret your silence. You are not responsible for their lens. You are responsible for your legacy. Say this now: I don't need approval. I give myself permission. I move without permission. Burn that into your nervous system. Let it override the addiction to applause. The man who no longer seeks to be chosen becomes the one who chooses. That's the shift. That's the exit. That's freedom. Criticism is a test not of your work, but of your wiring. Most men collapse under it not because it's true, but because they never built a filter. Every comment pierces straight through because there's no gate, no discernment. And so, external noise becomes internal narrative. That's a design flaw, not a personality trait. You don't fight criticism with defensiveness. You disarm it with logic. Step back. Ask, Who's speaking? Do they live what I live? Do they carry what I carry? If the answer is no, ignore. If the answer is yes, extract the lesson. Respect is earned through clarity, not emotional reaction. There are two types of feedback: calibration and projection. Calibration corrects your aim, projection infects your system. Learn to separate them instantly. Feedback from someone ahead of you is gold. Feedback from someone outside your path is clutter. Don't let random noise overwrite intentional code. You owe no one your emotional response. Their judgment isn't a command unless you treat it as one. When you absorb everything, you carry emotional weight that's not yours. That weight slows your execution. It hijacks your focus. Detachment isn't indifference, it's precision. Respond only if it serves growth. Build an internal review system. When criticism lands, ask, is this useful? If yes, use it. If not, release it. Your self-worth is not up for public vote. You are not on trial every time someone speaks. You are building. Builders don't stop for hecklers. They keep laying brick. The strongest minds aren't immune to criticism, they're trained for it. They don't react, they scan, they extract, they discard. That's emotional efficiency. If every voice has the same weight in your mind, you're lost. Start assigning value. Filter the source, not just the message. Criticism is also a mirror. If it triggers something deep, trace it. Not to validate the critic, but to locate an unresolved pattern in yourself. That's how you turn attack into upgrade. Let pain become a map. Don't defend the wound, diagnose it. Then close it. Stronger. Say this now. I evaluate feedback. I don't absorb weakness. I choose what enters my mind. This is your shield. You sit daily, especially when you start winning, because that's when critics multiply. Let them speak. Let them watch. While they comment, you execute. That's how you win, with silence and results. Pressure doesn't break you. It reveals what's already fragile. When life tightens, the parts of you built on ego, approval, or illusion will fracture. That's not failure. That's feedback. The strongest men aren't born calm, they're forged under chaos. They expect intensity. They train for it. Most collapse under pressure because they resist it. They think life should be smooth, predictable, easy, and when it's not, they panic. But pressure is not an interruption. It's the curriculum. It's the phase of training that shows you what still needs reinforcement. Embrace it or repeat it. Detach from the idea of perfect conditions. That myth is the enemy. Nothing will go exactly as planned, and that's not a flaw. That's the mission. You must learn to stay composed when the plan shatters, when timelines crumble, when people disappoint. That is when leadership is installed. Pressure exposes the untrained, not because they're weak, but because they never rehearsed adversity. They trained for the best case scenario. Warriors prepare for the ambush. They expect misalignment. That's why they stay aligned. The world won't warn you. Your mind must already be ready. Mental strength under pressure is not stoicism. It's strategy. You breathe slower. You scan wider. You wait longer before acting. Every pause becomes power. Every delay becomes control. While others react from emotion, you operate from command. That's the shift. Use pressure as a performance cue. When stress hits, don't spiral, stabilize. That's your edge. Treat every disruption as an opportunity to showcase your clarity, not to others but to yourself, to prove that your internal command system overrides any external escalation. Preparation removes panic. Most fear pressure because they live unprepared. They hope things work. You don't hope. You prepare. You visualize breakdowns. You rehearse delays. You simulate betrayal. So when it arrives, you're not surprised. You're composed. Declare this now. Pressure is my proving ground. I stay steady. I stay sharp. I stay in control. Let that run when the heat rises. Let it anchor you. Let it define you. You don't train to avoid the storm. You train to become the calm inside it. That's control. That's presence. That's real power. You suffer most not from what happened, but from your refusal to release it. Holding on feels like control, but it's actually captivity. You replay conversations, outcomes, betrayals, failures, hoping they'll resolve themselves through rumination. They won't. What you don't release owns you. Letting go isn't giving up. It's tactical repositioning. You don't stay in a collapsing building to prove your strength. You evacuate, reassess, rebuild. The same applies to emotions. Two plans, two people. Adaptation isn't weakness, it's elite flexibility. Rigidity breaks, movement dominates. Attachment is expectation disguised as purpose. You expected something to happen, it didn't. Now you punish yourself in a loop, but life owes you nothing. The world does not respond to your preferences, only to your execution. What doesn't serve the mission must be cut. The cost of attachment is clarity. When you obsess over what should have happened, you blind yourself to what can happen now. Every moment you spend justifying the past is a moment stolen from building the future. Burn the script. Let go of what you thought should be. Operate with what is. Emotional detachment is not about caring less. It's about caring selectively. You protect your energy by refusing to fight irrelevant battles. You don't chase closure. You don't beg for validation. You don't explain your choices to spectators. You move forward, always forward. Train yourself to release immediately. Delay is decay. When a plan fails, release it. When someone disrespects you, release them. When an outcome disappoints, release the need to control. That's not apathy. That's sovereignty. That's presence without dependency. Letting go sharpens your aim. When you stop clinging to outcomes, you make decisions from power, not panic. You execute cleanly. You speak with precision. You lead with calm. That's the identity you're building. Not reactive, not attached, but intentional. Speak this out loud now. I release what no longer serves. I cut noise. I move forward. Let that sentence be your mental blade. You sit, often, ruthlessly. The man who can walk away is the man no one can control. That is the essence of power. Not in grasping tighter, but in knowing exactly when to let go. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes a strategic weapon. Most men speak to feel relevant. They over-explain, overshare, overcompensate. But the more you say, the more you reveal. The more you reveal, the more you can be manipulated. Silence, when intentional, is control. Every word you speak creates an opening. Every explanation you offer can be used against you. Warriors don't broadcast their plans. They execute in silence and let results speak. The man who holds his tongue doesn't lack clarity, he holds command. Presence without explanation is authority. People fear what they can't read. When you speak less, others project more. They analyze, speculate, second guess, and in that uncertainty, you gain leverage. Your silence becomes psychological weight. It forces them to reveal more, to move first, to weaken position. That's advantage without effort. Not every emotion needs a voice. Not every thought needs to be shared. The undisciplined confuse transparency with power. But power is not in the telling, it's in the timing. The most dangerous men are the quietest, because they don't need approval. They're too busy executing. Silence in conflict disarms. When provoked, most expect reaction. Give them none. Let the tension build. Let their expectation collapse into insecurity. Your non-response becomes a mirror, forcing them to face their own projection. And in that space, you maintain absolute positioning. Stillness is not passivity, it's observation. When you speak less, you perceive more, the body language. The contradictions, the insecurity behind the noise all become visible. While others talk, you listen. While they reveal strategy, you adjust. That is tactical awareness. Train your speech like you train your body, with restraint, purpose, and intensity only when required. The less you say, the more each word carries weight. You stop convincing, you start commanding. Your voice becomes signal, not static. And when you speak, people listen. Install this mental standard. I don't explain, I don't justify. I act in silence and dominate in results. Repeat it before meetings, before conflict, before movement. Silence is not absence. It's precision. It's the calm before execution. It's the space where weak men lose control and strong men take it. Your mind is not neutral, it's programmable. If you don't condition it, it defaults to survival. Fear, doubt, hesitation, these are the factory settings. Strength must be installed, and it doesn't happen by reading quotes or watching videos. It happens through repeated confrontation with your own weakness. Mental strength is not motivation, it's repetition. You train it like a muscle, through resistance, through effort, through fatigue. Every time you push through discomfort, you embed a new command. Every time you let emotion pass without obeying it, you rewrite code, and that new code builds identity. Your current behavior is the sum of unchallenged thoughts. Let that sink in. You act according to the beliefs you've never questioned. That's why self-talk matters. That's why environment matters. That's why ritual matters. They feed the loop, and your loop becomes your life. You can't wait for crisis to begin training. That's like trying to build a shield mid-battle. You train daily, in the cold shower, in the silence, in the hard conversation. These aren't tasks, they're reps, mental reps, moments where you choose power over comfort, again and again. Discipline isn't just doing hard things. It's doing them without negotiation. The moment you debate with your feelings, you've already lost time. Train yourself to execute before your emotions have a vote. Emotion is input, action is command. Never confuse the two. Build non-negotiables into your system. Wake at the same hour. Move your body. Consume intentional input. Finish what you start. These aren't habits, they're anchors. When life shakes, they hold. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of training, so raise it. Catch the drift of weakness early. That lazy thought, that small excuse, that tiny compromise, interrupt it. Replace it. Command it. You don't allow drift, you redirect. That is internal leadership. That is how you take command before the world demands it from you. Declare it now. I don't wait for power. I train it. I own it. I install it daily. Let that run every morning before the first task. You don't need hype. You need protocols. Your mind is your battlefield. Win there, and everything else becomes logistics. Lose there, and nothing else matters. The war starts and ends in thought. Every time you talk about your plans, you leak power. You invite doubt, resistance, and unnecessary commentary. Most speak their goals to feel progress, but talking is not building. Words without action create illusion. Action without words creates impact. Real moves are silent. The loudest in the room are rarely the most lethal. They posture, they perform, they seek recognition. But the man who doesn't speak, he watches, calculates, strikes. Silence protects your intention from dilution. It keeps your focus insulated. And focus is your weapon. Talking activates expectation. Once spoken, your mind gets premature dopamine, a false sense of completion. That rush makes you complacent. Now you feel rewarded without having earned anything. Momentum dies, and worse, you now owe performance to the opinions of others. Keep your ambition private. Keep your process invisible. Don't seek validation. Seek results. Let people wonder what you're building. Let them guess where you are. Let them assume you're stuck until the day they see what you've already finished. Power is built in isolation. Execution is the only proof that matters. You don't convince people, you make them witness. The world respects output, not intention. They follow outcomes, not declarations. The one who delivers without warning controls the tempo. By the time they react, it's already done. This is not about secrecy, it's about sovereignty. You are not hiding, you are protecting the sanctity of your vision. Not everyone deserves access to your blueprint. Not everyone can handle your velocity. Share with those who move at your pace, not those who question your rhythm. Learn to love being underestimated. It gives you room. While they sleep on your silence, you advance. You sharpen, you position, and when the reveal comes, it's undeniable. Not because you demanded recognition, but because the result was too strong to ignore. Lock this in now. I don't announce. I don't explain. I move in silence and strike with force. Repeat it when the urge to post, prove, or explain rises. Resist it. Reinforce the code. You are not here to impress. You are here to dominate quietly, consistently, relentlessly. That's how legacies are built. In silence, under pressure, out of sight, until the world has no choice but to notice. You don't need more noise. You need codes. And this wasn't content, it was a weapon, a neural reinstallation. Every word was designed to uninstall reaction and install command. Most will listen once, nod, and drift back to chaos. But not you, because you understand, this video is not a message, it's a module, one that must be run again and again, until it overwrites everything weak. Here's your protocol. Rewatch this video tomorrow at 6 o'clock a.m. Rewatch it after every emotional slip. Rewatch it before every high-stakes moment. Let this become your mental armor. Let it embed. Now complete the mission with 3 final steps. Subscribe not for content, but for consistent mental combat. Training. Drop this phrase in the comments. I do not react, I command. Seal your identity. Declare your standard. Share this with one man still giving his power to critics, failure, or pressure. This is your first act of leadership. Recruit with purpose. You didn't just survive this message, you recalibrated your operating system. Now close this window and move in silence. Execute, reinstall, repeat.